Amok is the only album by Atoms for Peace, which is a supergroup that features Tom York, best known as the lead singer and frontman of Radiohead, Nigel Godrich, longtime producer for Radiohead, Flea, who is best known as the bassist for Red Hot Chili Peppers, Joey Warwonker, who is best known as the drummer for REM, and Mauro Rafasco, who is a percussionist. I do like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and REM is a pretty good band, and just the idea of these musicians teaming up for a collaborative project sound like a really fun idea, so I gave this album a listen. Only to realize that this really should have been just another Tom York album. I say this because Tom York is a lot more involved than the musicians I mentioned other than him. Before Your Very Eyes is a great opening track to Amok. Tom York's vocals are hypnotic, and Flea's bass instrumentation is just as great as you would expect from him if you are familiar with Red Hot Chili Peppers. My only nitpick with this track is that it goes a little too long than it should have had. Default is a great follow-up to Before Your Very Eyes. The electronic instrumentation is great, and Tom York's vocals soars in this track. Ingenue is another track I really enjoyed in Amok, and the electronic instrumentation is fantastic, and it's also catchy. My only problem with this track is that Tom York's vocals are a little hard to hear clearly when compared to other songs in Amok. Just like previous tracks, Dropped has good electronic instrumentation in it, and I do like the percussion in it. That's all I can say about it. Unless is another good track in Amok, but I start to notice that Tom York seems to be ego-wanking throughout the production of this record. Hey, it's good to hear Flea's bass once again in this track. Judge, Jury, and Executioner is a catchy track. I like the acoustic guitar instrumentation, and the rest of it's pretty good. That's all I can say about it. After 7 tracks, we finally hear some drumming, which now raises one thing that has been creeping up on me ever since I was progressing through Amok. How the band members are utilized in the entire production of Amok is really unbalanced. You only hear Flea in a couple songs. Hell, you hear drumming in the penultimate track after 7 tracks of just electronic instrumentation. Now, while I do love how reverse running segues into the final titular track of Amok, I do wish the closing track would have utilized all its band members to bow out on this record, but alas, I'm only hearing electronic instrumentation, perhaps Tom York doing whatever he does with this song, but I'm not hearing any drumming. So, I will admit this album was disappointing. I do think Amok is a good closing track, and I did enjoy this album for what it's worth. But after experiencing this album, I wish Flea and Joey Warwonker was more involved than what they did in this album. I would have given Amok a much higher rating if there was more balance with the music artists involved with this collaborative project. Tom York, rightfully so, is featured in every single track. That's fine. Mauro Rafasco is prominent in this album, but Flea is only in a few tracks, and Joey Walker's drumming I can only recognize in one track. There's the imbalance there. Should Atoms for Peace do a second album, they need to correct this imbalance by actually utilizing Flea and Joey Walker more often than this one. I do think Amok is a good album, but I do find it disappointing knowing that a couple music artists that really would have strengthened this album are not used that much. I am shooting for a 7.5 out of 10 for Amok.